At the start of dinner, Gorkon raises his glass and toasts to the undiscovered country. And then everybody stares at him like it's a class full of ninth graders and they have no idea what the teacher's talking about, and they just desperately want to get an A on their pop quiz about Hamlet. This reference, as Spock will point out, comes from Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1, which is part of the famous to be or not to be soliloquy. Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. So in this speech, there's one unfamiliar word. The word fardels means bundle or burden. So what this bit of the speech is saying is, why do people carry on with life even though it's difficult? Because we have dread. We don't know what's coming after this life. And so we know that things are difficult, but the undiscovered country, death, whatever comes after this life, that's very, very uncertain. And so most people are very happy to stick with life as it is rather than rush toward the unknown. And that's really interesting because in this original context, the undiscovered country is death. So everyone sits here and stares at Gorkon in surprise, but he explains that what he means in this context is that this phrase means the future. The irony here is that death is in Gorkon's immediate future. He will be murdered immediately after this dinner in a plot led by the Starfleet officer Valeris, just as King Duncan was killed in a plot hatched by Lady Macbeth in the play Macbeth. So both the original meaning in Hamlet, the undiscovered country meaning death, and Gorkon's more optimistic meaning of death meaning the end of an angry past and the birth of a better future, both of those apply in this scene. Super deep, right? Spock is both courteous and intrigued, and so he points out the reference, and Gorkon quips that
you have not experienced Shakespeare until you have read him in the original Klingon.
I want to do just a fun little sidebar into here where, because of this reference, some people who are far nerdier than me put together a Klingon Shakespeare version of Hamlet, and they said that this is by William Shakespeare. The writer of the movie got the idea for this line from how the Nazis tried to appropriate Shakespeare as a writer that represented the true Aryan race. This is the Klingon Hamlet, which I'm going to admit I am not nerdy enough to have read. So that's a level of nerdery that not even I can aspire to. But if any of you have read it, please tell me if you actually enjoyed it. I mean, you'd have to go to all that work first to learn Klingon. But I would be interested to know, I don't know, what do you think of the poetry in it? Does it flow? Is it fun? Or is this just sort of a gimmick, which it kind of is, and that's okay. I think it's pretty clear that the characters in this scene know that Gorkon is just kind of telling a little bit of a trolling joke. I know that in the Star Trek canon, there is the idea that Klingons have tried to appropriate Shakespeare, but I get the impression that the people in this room know that Gorkon is kidding. And I would like to spark a furious nerd debate over that. So if you're a Star Trek geek, argue over whether or not these Klingons actually think that Shakespeare is a Klingon, or if they're just kind of trolling the Starfleet guys just a little bit. And you get that from General Chang, too, who quotes to be or not to be in Klingon.
Tach, pa, tach, be.
All of this is not impressing Kirk, who is pounding Romulan ale and not even trying to hide his stink face. And I love this picture of him because it's very representative of how a lot of kids feel when they are forced to study Shakespeare as opposed to coming to it voluntarily. Like, if you have to force a kid to read it and you're saying, but you don't know how great it is, this is the stink face that you're going to end up with, and it's not going to go very well. This scene shows that the Klingons are better at observing their adversaries and that they have come to this dinner better prepared than the Starfleet officers. At the beginning of the scene, the Klingons carefully observe and imitate human dining customs. They watch what everyone's doing with their napkins, and they just really look around and see what's going on in a way that the Starfleet officers aren't. Like you can see here in this picture, Chang is observing the behavior of those around him and trying to fit in smoothly, and Kirk is just giving him the stink eye. Like he's really being rude. They've not only discovered Shakespeare because of this curiosity about those who are different from them, but they've embraced him. And so this proves that humanity's greatest writer can even speak to weirdo aliens wearing vinyl doublets. None of the Starfleet officers have put in any of this kind of work. In this film, you don't see anybody from Starfleet being aware of, let alone accurately quoting, say, a Klingon author. You get the idiot Rosencrantz and Guildenstern characters say they smell, and Uhura complains about their table manners. The only one at this party who acquits himself well, other than Spock, is Scotty, who cheerfully predicts that this dinner is a glimpse at a more friendly future. And I wonder if perhaps as a Scotsman, Scotty is better able to hold his Romulan ale while everyone else is drunk as a skunk and getting kind of ornery. The evening leaves Spock mortified about his colleague's horrible behavior, and all he can do is stand there in dismay as they stumble off to deal with their hangovers. As a parent, I would just like to stop and say that this scene is a good lesson for kids about how booze can help you say and do stupid things and leave you feeling terrible afterwards. This scene helped a kid like me realize that Shakespeare can appeal to someone from any cultural background, and that Shakespeare can be recontextualized and reinterpreted as the occasion requires. General Chang certainly understood this, and he showed witty irony at the end of the dinner when he steps up to Kirk and says, "Parting is such sweet sorrow." And this line is spoken by Juliet to Romeo at the end of the famous balcony scene, and it's originally spoken between young lovers instead of old enemies. And sarcastically deploying it at this moment shows not only that Chang really does understand his Shakespeare, but he's got like a nice, witty, dark sense of humor. Of all the Star Trek scenes that reference Shakespeare, I feel that this one is the absolute peak. We've got two great kings in the form of Gorkon and Kirk holding their courts together, and they're negotiating the future, as happened at the end of Henry V. We've got multiple references to literature and history, and a battle of wits that is decisively won by the Klingons. And we have a scene that distills a crucial period of history into a single scene. And I feel safe that saying that the dinner party in Star Trek VI is a scene that would impress even the great Klingon bard, William Shakespeare.